Yeah, I grew up in a family that never went to church. We lived a Christian life, but we never went to church or talked about God or anything. And I can remember in the 60s, I used to start listening to a Bible prophecy program on the radio. And after listening to that for a while, it seemed to make sense, and I started following it. And then, quite a few years later, it came on the TV, and anyhow, I bought myself a Bible and started trying to follow this Bible prophecy program. And about 12 months, I must have done that or a bit more. And I learned a little bit, but not very much. They had the British Israel message and a few other things, and I thought these people were spot on. But anyhow, I found out since they don't have the Spirit. And anyhow, I used to have a truck running interstate from Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, carrying pot plants and things. And one day I was in my yard cleaning my truck out, and this bloke comes around trying to sell me insurance. And he said, "Oh, I'll come round to your place 7:30 tomorrow night." And as he walked away, I thought to myself, I should have told that idiot to jump in the lake, I don't want any insurance. So I go home at 8 o'clock, so I'd miss him. And he followed me in. And anyway, we talked about the insurances, and he said to me, finished up saying, "Well, why do you feel the way you do about things?" Because I've been watching this prophecy program. And anyhow, I told him, I showed him some of this that I'd taped while I was away, and he agreed with it. And I thought, oh, if this bloke agrees with it, he must know what he's talking about. And he said, "Oh, I got Bible studies on Sunday, would you like to come?" And I was heading off to Melbourne. I was going to be away for 10 days at a time. And when I came home, the first thing I did was ring him up and made sure he hadn't changed his mind. I started chasing him then. And once I went to my first meeting, well, that was it. I was just sort of, as people say, you sort of feel like you've come home. And anyway, I could only get to one meeting a fortnight there for quite a while. And I decided I wanted to sell my truck, and I'd had enough of travelling up and down the highway, and sell my truck, and I'd get to all the midweek meetings and get to a meeting every Sunday and that. And after a while, we got to a convention in Melbourne, and I met up with one of the pastors down in the area where I used to do a lot of deliveries. And there for a while, I'd go to one meeting. Those days I was in the Toowoomba Assembly. That's where I came to the Lord. I'd go to a meeting in Toowoomba one week, and then I'd go to a meeting in Melbourne the next week, and back to Toowoomba and back to Melbourne. And a bit hard trying to fit into 2 assemblies at once. And I've been having a lot of prayer that the Lord help me sell my truck, and nothing seemed to happen. And one day we had a prayer and fast, and I just changed, and I just said, "Lord, take it off my hands." And I used to pray a lot while I was driving down the highway. And there's certain towns, like, you always had the same pattern every time you go down. Between Albury and Wodonga would be one place I'd pray all the way through. And there's a few places like that. You do the same thing each trip. And anyhow, this time I asked the Lord to take it off my hands. I've been praying quite a bit going down. I went to the meeting in Melbourne, and I had 2 deliveries to do. And when I was going to do my next delivery, I was on a detour. And I was praying in tongues, asked the Lord to take it off my hand while I was driving along. And there's a railway line there, and I used to expect to cross the railway line in the usual place, but I crossed it where I didn't expect it. You can't see the line until you're right on it. And I went across the railway line at the same time as the train went across. And one half of my truck was about 100 metres down one side of the line, the other half was on the other side of the line. And I was praying in tongues, asking to take it off my hands while it happened. And the funny part about it, my brother drives that train, but he wasn't driving it that day. They took me into the hospital. I was there for just a few hours, and somebody rang him and told him I was there. And he doesn't know who rang him and told him, and I haven't got a clue who it was. And so he found out, I don't know how he found out that I was there, but he came and saw me. But yeah, but after that I was able to get home and get to all the meetings and get the midweek meetings and everything. And just before that happened, I got asthma pretty bad. I nearly died a few times. I'd be on the floor and there'd be a phone there, and I couldn't even get to the phone. If I did get to it, I couldn't talk on the phone or anything. And I had quite a few asthma attacks like that. And yeah, one night I was really, really sick. And I got out on the floor and I got on my hands and knees, and I just stayed, I reckon I stayed there about 2 hours, really putting it to the Lord. And it was just like as if someone come put their hand on my back and said, "Right, you're healed." And I got back into bed feeling great. And anyhow, next morning I woke up and I was just as sick as ever, and I couldn't understand it. And looking back, from that point on, it took about 2 years, but from that point on, I've never had asthma for about, I don't know, might be 25, might be even 30 years since I've had any trace of the asthma. It started leaving me from that point on. I went up to New Guinea 1 year, and I came back, and I got out of bed and felt fine, and now then I got really sick. I got that sick I had to get one of the brothers to take me to the doctor. And anyhow, when I went there, he rang Pastor Bill. I was in Bundaberg by this time. I moved up to Bundaberg, and I was really sick, and anyhow, Pastor Bill's had malaria, and he said, oh, well, that's malaria. And anyhow, I went to the doctor and saw the doctor, and I said to the doctor that I said, Brian's been having prayer for me, and I'm going to get a healing for this. The doctor says, no way. He says, when you got malaria, you got that for many years. And anyway, I had to go away and get some blood tests and come back again the same day. When I get to the door the second time, he stopped me at the door. He says, a funny thing, he says, people of your attitude always get over these things better than anybody else, even though he doesn't believe in healings. And I used to have arthritis in the lower part of my spine. I've got a healing over that. I had no trouble with my back. When I went up to Bundaberg, there was no work up there. It's one of the highest unemployment places in Australia, and I was looking for work. Couldn't find work anywhere, and there's one of the brothers worked in an engineering place, and when they were really busy, he'd tell me, and I'd go pestering them for a job. And when they got quiet, I'd just back off. And I finished up and got a job there until I retired. And I just find it doesn't really matter what you want. It doesn't matter if it's big things or little things. If you want to go downtown somewhere, you got to pull up, and in the main streets, it's almost impossible to find a park. You just have a bit of prayer. Lord, find little things like that. You'll find some park for you. Usually, no parks there. Just a place you want to go to. One will pull out in front of you, something like that. Or just if you lose something, just put it to the Lord, and it always seems to come back to you. And just like to praise the Lord for everything He's done for me.